Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm back with 4 more mechs. This one includes what I believe is the most iconic mech in Battletech, and how I convert 2 of the mechs, so hopefully you guys enjoy the video. And here are the 4 mechs I'm going to paint in the new camo schemes. Up first is the Arctic camo for the Battlemaster. So we're first going to base coat the whole Battlemaster in GW Celestial Gray, as this will form the prominent color for this new camo scheme. And at the end of the video, I will discuss why I believe the Battlemaster is, in my opinion, Battletech's most iconic mech. And this is what the Battlemaster should look like after 2 to 3 thin coats of GW Celestial Gray. The next step is to grab a watered down GW Rust Gray. I use 50-50 paint to water, and I apply it over the whole model, let it sit for about 30 minutes. Once it's dry, we're ready to move on to the camo pattern. Now that the Rust Gray is dry and I do the jeweling effect on the green lenses, I'm gonna grab GW Contrast Paint Creed Camo, and I'm gonna just create almost like big S shape / squiggly lines with this. I apply 2 to 3 coats depending on how dark I want certain parts of the model to look. And this is what the Battlemaster should look like with the green camo patterns on. The first highlighting step is grabbing GW Ulthuan Gray. Like in all of my camo painting guides, just edge highlight all of the panels and most prominent areas, even if it goes over the green marking. The last highlighting step is to grab GW Ulthuan Gray and any white paint. I use dead white from Vallejo. I make a 50-50 mix, and all I do is highlight the sharpest and most prominent edges of the panels. And there you guys have it. That is the Arctic scheme for the Battlemaster done. Moving on to the Shadowhawk with the new Forest camo pattern. To start the Forest camo, we're going to grab GW Deathworld Forest, and we're going to have to apply 2 to 3 thin coats. As you can see, this base paint is quite thin, and we need a solid and nice even coverage on the model. Once that's done, this is what the Shadowhawk should look like. We can now move on to the unique camo pattern for this Forest camo. For the first camo pattern, we're going to grab GW Death Guard Green, and we're going to create basically triangles or any other shape that is sharp, like a square or a rectangle. I'm keeping towards triangle shapes. Apply these all over the model and try to stagger it. I would recommend keeping maybe 5 to 6 millimeters in spacing for these triangles. Once we have the Death Guard green triangles done, we're going to grab GW Xandri Dust and create the same shapes, either touching the Death Guard green triangles or right next to them. Again, try to keep some nice spacing in between. Take your time. If you make any mistakes, you can grab the Death Guard green and fix any mistakes. Now that's done, we're going to grab Castellan green and create, again, triangles touching both the Xandri Dust and the Death Guard green triangles. If you have to overlap some of the shapes, don't worry. That'll make the camouflage pattern look a lot more organic and natural. Once all the camo patterns are done, we're going to grab GW Seraphim Sepia and apply a shade over the whole model. Try to avoid any pooling and wick it away with the brush if you do see any sections having that effect. Now moving on to the first highlight, we're going to grab GW Elysian Green, and like all my camo patterns, I'm going to edge highlight all the sharpest edges, and if it does go over the triangle camo patterns, don't worry, it will again help blend and make everything look natural. Once we have all that highlighted, we're going to grab our last color, GW Ogren Camo, and hit the most prominent edges once again. For this step, it's the last one, so take your time, be patient, and try to get the lines as thin as possible. And there you guys have it. That is the new forest camo done, simple and effective. Before we go on to the new tropical camo for this battle droid rifleman, I have to convert the model. So we're going to grab one of the legs, the left leg, and we're going to slice it at the knee. The reason I'm doing this is the model is very static, and I believe some simple changes can make it look a lot more dynamic. Once you snip it at the knee, you're going to make a hole with pin vise, put a paper clip, and pin the two parts together, leaving about a 2 to 3 millimeter gap. And you can see the rifleman having a slightly more dynamic pose already makes the model, in my opinion, look much better. Once you glue both of the arms and the antenna on the model, we can move on to the sculpting, and this is fairly simple. We're going to grab a small ball of green stuff, and we're going to sculpt basically a rectangle just to fill this gap. Try to match the other leg. Because it's a very smooth shape, it shouldn't take too much time, it should go by fairly fast. And after a little bit of work, this is what the new sculpted part should look like. Blends pretty seamlessly, and I think the rifleman has a much better pose now. Now back to the painting, we're going to grab GW Wraithbone and apply roughly 3 to 4 coats. You could just prime the model in that primer color, but I usually just stick to my black primer for my basing. So if you want to save some time, grab the GW Primer Wraithbone and prime the model. If not, apply 3 to 4 coats. Once we have 3 to 4 coats of Wraithbone, the model is ready for the 2 camo stripe patterns. For the first camo pattern, we're going to grab GW Tau Orca Light, and there's no good way to describe the shapes I'm painting besides just wavy lengths. You can follow an S-shaped curve, you can make them more oval-like, whatever design you can think of, just apply them pretty evenly across the model. And this is what the rifleman should look like with the Tau Orca Light camo patterns. As you can see, I left a lot more gaps than normal as I'm trying to keep the pattern a bit more sparse for this. The next color we're going to grab is GW Lothern Blue, and you can see I already started painting. We're going to put this camo pattern next to the Tau Orca Light, so whatever shape, just follow the curvature and take your time with it. And this is what the mech should look like. As you can see, the camo patterns are very striking and it does look pretty cool already. But once we put the shades on, it'll help blend and tone everything down. The first shade we're going to use is GW Seraphim Sepia. Because we used Wraithbone, this will stain a lot more than the other camo patterns we've been doing. So try your best to avoid any pooling. If you make small mistakes, it's totally fine. Once we highlight the model, it'll help reduce how bad the model has been stained. And this is what the rifleman should look like. So slightly stained in some sections, but as you can see, the colors do blend a lot more. Now the first highlight we're going to do is grab GW Wraithbone and highlight all the edges. Because we're using the base color, this will help kind of tidy up any of the tide stains or staining effect that we achieve. But it also adds an element to the tropical camo. It kind of looks like sand. Now that we have the first highlight done, we're going to go back to the camo patterns. So I go back with Tau Orca Light and highlight all the edges of this camo. The reason I'm doing this is to add a bit more depth to this orange color, but the shade color kind of makes some sections blend together. So I'm trying to redefine these areas. Now going to the blue camo, I grab GW Lothern Blue, and like I did for the orange, I'm just redefining certain areas. This does look a little bit sharp and startling, but the last 2 steps will help make everything blend. So take your time, try to have a steady control. If you do slip up, you can always go back to the Wraithbone and Sepia mix and try to hide any spillage. And this is what the Battle Droid Rifleman looks like at the moment. He looks almost complete, but there's one or two extra things we have to do still. For the final panel highlights, we're going to grab GW Wraithbone and add a little bit of Vallejo Dead White, a 50-50 mix, and as usual, hit all the most prominent edges. This is one of the few mechs that I hit almost every single highlight instead of just the normal 50 to 60% of it. After that, we're going to make our way back to the blue. I'm going to grab GW Calidor Sky, add a little bit of water, so a 50-50 mix, and just apply it to the inside of the blue markings. As you can see, it helps reduce that sepia wash, but makes the blue very striking. Then we go to the orange, and I grab GW Cassandor Yellow, the shade, and I do the same effect of applying it in the center. And that is the tropical camo done. Moving on to the Tranquility camo. Before that, I have to do a slight conversion as well. Starting with the Thunderbolt's gun arm, his pose is pretty static, so I chop it at the elbow, and I will then apply some green stuff. I will match the other side, so I'm creating a almost box shape. Once I have this all smooth, I will go back with the sculpting tool and add in the sharp lines to create that ribbed / serrated effect you see on these old mechs to represent their mechanical joints. And this is what the Thunderbolt's arm should look like after a little bit of work. Looks very natural, and I'm much happier with this new repose, as the original pose is a little bit derpy. Now back to the painting. We're going to grab GW Zamesi Desert and apply 3 to 4 coats. This color is a little bit transparent, and we want a solid and even coverage for this camo scheme. Once we finish the 3 to 4 coats, the model is ready for the unique camo inspired by some 40k art. We're going to grab GW Abaddon Black. I use the air color as it's already thin, and we're going to basically create 3 looking stripes, almost like a wheat field. This camo is inspired by the Mantis warriors in the Badab War, and I think it looks really cool on the mechs. So take your time and apply these 3 to 2 black stripes. Make them meet at the center, and make sure your brush is very thin, as you want these stripes to be thin and not overly chunky or fat. And this is what the Thunderbolt should look like after you have all the camo on. We're then going to grab GW Seraphim Sepia and apply a wash over the whole model. Like usual, do not let it pool too much. If it does pool, use your brush to whisk it away. Now that the model is completely covered, you can see it has a very rich tone to it, and we can move on to the first highlight. All we're going to do is grab the base color GW Zamesi Desert, and again edge highlight all of the panels, even if it goes over the black pattern. The reason I always do this step for all of my camos is it adds a very organic and natural look to the camo schemes, and kind of adds a sense of realism to the model. Now that we have the first highlight down, we can grab GW Uriel Yellow and add a final highlight to all the top edges of the panels. Once you have completed this step, this scheme is done. And again, here is the completed Tranquility camo for the Thunderbolt. So guys, I hope you enjoyed these 4 new camo schemes on the mechs. I want to talk a little bit about the Battlemaster and the mechs themselves. So why do I think the Battlemaster is Battletech's most iconic mech? Well, I know it's in the top contender. Many would say the Warhammer, the Mad Cat, or the Atlas, but there's something about the Battlemaster's imposing size, and maybe because I grew up with seeing him on the logo of Battletech, that's why I really do love this mech. I would love to hear you guys in the comments below what you think is the most iconic mech in Battletech. And guys, as usual, the end of this video will be me talking a little bit about the 4 different camo schemes and how I felt overall painting them. Starting off with the Battlemaster in the Arctic camo, he is honestly one of my favorite paint jobs so far for how fast and efficient the colors work together. It's just so effective, and I think this white came out very nice for how simple. And I think the green lenses was the right choice. It just looks so striking on this model. Moving on to the new forest camo on the Shadowhawk, I really do like the geometric camo shapes on this model. I've seen it done quite a bit in 40K, and I think it works extremely well on our mechs. This forest camo I definitely want to paint one more time, as again, fast, and it's nice with the yellow lens combination as well. On to the Thunderbolt with the Tranquility camo. I think this scheme is really nice, comes from the Badab War 40K. I was surprised actually how it looks a little bit natural. I did lean away from the overly strong yellow you would see in 40K, and I think this natural, more earthy tone works very well. And finally, onto the Tropical camo. This actually became one of my favorites for how unusual the color combination is. It surprised me, as I didn't really know the direction that this was going to end up, and I'm fairly happy with it. I would like to see it on one other mech before I have like a final verdict. And again guys, here are the 4 mechs. I hope you enjoyed this video. I have a few more mechs to paint, and then I'll record some battle reports in the near future.